As I've said before, welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is a workshop about organization skills and practicing that with a software called OneNote that's part of the Microsoft suite available to you through Wake Tech. So, with that, we're going to get started first with kind of some general organizing techniques, and then we'll talk about OneNote specifically. So, I have worked as a tutor both on North Campus and as a virtual tutor for the last year or so. And I cannot tell you how many times I hear this from students. Um, I I don't even know where my to-do list is, or I'm always late in the morning because I can never decide what clothes to wear, or I'm always stressing out my parents and my kids because I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing. So we know that organization is important. Um, But it turns out that good organizational skills are linked to success in almost everything. They allow you to work efficiently and effectively at any task that you undertake, whether that's organizing your closet or organizing a family get together like Thanksgiving or organizing your car, right? Like this is something that we find ourselves doing all the time. Being organized can help reduce stress that might otherwise hinder your achievement. These organizational skills can buy you time and energy to actually reach your true potential in everything that you're trying to do. And these organizational skills can allow your true talents and abilities to shine through by preventing chaos and disorder. So, organizational skills are a win basically everywhere in life. But I recently read these survey results and I was interested to see some of them, especially the last one. According to a survey based on organizational skills, 2 out of every 3 young adults reports feeling stressed out on a daily basis. 74% of young adults say that their 20s are more stressful than that of their parents. 68% of young adults describe their peers as really or kind of stressed. 62% of high school students feel they're always or frequently rushed to keep up with high school, jobs, families, and social lives. And 43% said that they would really like to increase the amount of time they could spend with family, but they don't know where they would find the time. And that feels like a heartbreaker to me because I think family is super duper important. And spending time together is one of the ways that I do that with my family. So, I think if we can organize things, we might be able to spend more time doing the things that are our top priority. This slide is about separating fact from fiction. Um, so, one thing that you might have heard or might even think is that organization is the same thing as being neat. And I've got to tell you, no, that's not true. I think being organized has more to do with the space being functional than it does with it looking a certain way. Um, Another thing you might have heard is that being organized is a talent and you're either born with it or you're not. And I know that it can feel that way sometimes, but in truth, organizing is a learned skill. That's why you might see it run in families because parents teach their children and those children teach their children a certain way of physically organizing their space. And this one is really hard for those sentimental ones among us because you feel like whenever you've been asked to organize something, you're being asked to throw away your things. And the truth is, you can keep everything that you want and still get organized. The point of organization is not to minimize your possessions, it's to maximize your access to them. So, just a couple of things I wanted to get straight. And on this slide, we have several roadblocks to organization that you may have experienced or seen in your life. Any task or item that does not have a home is just going to float around on the horizontal surfaces of your house and float through your brain anytime you have a spare minute. So things without a home can keep us from being organized. Um, Inconvenient storage can also keep us from being organized. It doesn't matter if you have a closet that is a walk in and has space for 3 people. If the rods are too high for you to use, you're not going to use it. Overly complex organizational systems, I'm about 3 levels. I'm good to about 3 levels, but if I go many more deeper levels than that, I get confused and it's not worth it. Another real roadblock to being organized is having more stuff than you have space available for it. Like everything is wonderful, but if you cannot reach the end of the row, then it might as well be in Peru. That's how I feel. Um, Another one that really is a concern to our ADHD friends is if they can't see it, it doesn't exist. My husband is this way with screwdrivers. I tend to put them, well, when we were first married, I put them in like a toolbox and closed it up, but then he forgot we even had screwdrivers and he went out and bought more because he couldn't see it and so it didn't exist. So we've had to like compromise on our organizational systems. um and sometimes people think that this is just the way that I am. And if you threaten the way that my life is just in piles around the room, you're threatening me as a person and my identity. And I've got to tell you, it's not about who you are. We want that to shine as bright as possible. We just want you to be able to find the things that you need when you need them. Similarly, some people think that organization is boring. And I would argue that it's hard work to get organized, but once you get that way, and it's hard work to stay that way, but it allows you to do the thing that you want. It allows you to access that favorite thing and that calling that you feel like you have on your life if you know where things are and where you can find them. And also, and that leads me into this last one. If you are not clear on what it is you're trying to do, you're not clear on what your first priority needs to be, it can lead to some unmet expectations and some real conflict about how your home is organized. So, we're going to get into that pretty soon. Um, Now, in this talk, we're going to be focusing on three major areas: the space and physical possessions that you have. It's one area. Tasks like projects and reports and maybe even schoolwork. And lastly, your time. These are the three big areas we're going to focus on in this talk. So what I'd like to do is hear from you in the chat. Please type the number that is the most challenging to you. 1 is physical spaces, 2 is time, 3 projects and assignments, maybe even budgets, and 4 all of the above. I'd really love to hear from you. What is the most challenging in your life? And once you've done that, I'm curious, which organizational systems have you been able to stick with? Because they're all good to start with, but like finding one you can stick with is the real challenge. And what kind of organizational system do you find effective? Yeah, Jordan, I get you. Um, Time and physical spaces, that makes sense. Makes total sense. Okay, time. I can see that time is so precious. And I cannot tell you how much I just lose into my phone if I'm not careful. Oh, man. TikTok. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, cool. I love that. Jordan says that music helps a lot when you're working, but finding music to keep you focused, but doesn't make him dance is a challenge. I can see that. Finding just the right music. I have found on YouTube there are channels that are like lo-fi hip hop or lo-fi morning music, and they're lyric free, but they just kind of put you in a really good headspace. I would agree with that. I see some other folks are typing. Yeah, I can understand. Um, Especially if you live in a shared space, you have roommates, you have family. Sometimes physical space can be a challenge. Yeah, I can see that, Ashley. You're right. Anything that is occasional sometimes is hard for me to keep up with as well. All right, dear ones. So here's what I've got for you. Um, whether we're talking about time or space or our projects, these are the three steps every single time. First, you're going to analyze, you're going to notice what's going on. Then we're going to strategize, so make a plan. And last, we're going to attack. So we're going to do the thing. So analyze, strategize, attack. These are the three steps in organizing any area of your life that you're having trouble with. So, first thing, when it comes to analysis, you're just basically looking. Like there's no judgment here. It's not good or bad. This is not a moral thing. We're just trying to gauge the functionality of your spaces and systems. So, first, you need to identify what is working well and what is not. So, with my husband, having a closed toolbox did not work at all. So, we kind of reevaluated and we put in a pegboard system so you can see everything at a glance. You have to decide what is essential with that space or that task that you're organizing. Is it important that it looks a certain way or that it functions a certain way? And what kind of compromises can you come to when there's more than one person involved? Three, what's the payoff if you get yourself organized? Another kind of pain point for us is dishes, but we have said we made a bet, like if we can keep the kitchen sink clean every night for a month, then we're going to go out to this big new restaurant that opened up in town. So make yourself extrinsic goals if intrinsic ones aren't working for you. There are no rules here. You just have to make it functional. And the last one, what is the specific problem? So wondering if maybe there's a roadblock, like you have different guiding principles, or maybe you have different expectations for how things should be. So figuring out exactly what the problem is, again, no judgment, but just noticing can be really helpful. So again, step one is analysis. Step two is to make strategies. So there are two important strategies that I want to remind you of. The last time I went to visit family in Arkansas, we stayed at a really nice Airbnb, and man, they had notes everywhere. Like, this is how you turn on the fireplace, and this is how you load the dishwasher, and be sure that you push these three buttons if you want it to dry for you. And please be mindful of our old plumbing and only use two puffs. Like they were real specific. But in your physical space, it's really good to have clear areas. Like this is where I'm going to work. This is where I'm going to sleep. This is where I'm going to play computer games. So you have zones for everything and everything is completely labeled, especially in shared spaces. It can be really clarifying and everybody knows what to expect. So again, that's the Airbnb model. And then the second thing is time blocking. You know how long it takes you to get ready in the morning. For me, it's about 20 minutes. For my husband, it's about an hour. But he likes to think that if we get up at the same time, we'll be ready at the same time. No, 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 no. That's not how that works. But knowing yourself and knowing how long a thing takes you is going to help you organize your time and your life and keep people from being anxious or worried about things being done in a reasonable manner. So, again, we're going to analyze, so just notice, and then strategize. So, know yourself and know how long it takes you to do things. And the third step is about attacking the problem head on. Now here, it's going to depend what kind of issue that you're dealing with, which strategy you're going to use. Again, our big three areas we talked about was physical space and possessions, a task or a report, and time. So when it comes to a space, this is a really useful acronym that's helpful. It's SPACE, space. And organizing a space, the first thing you want to do is sort. Go through and put like things with like. If I have to deal with a kid's messy bedroom, I always make a round and pick up the trash. And then I pick up the laundry. And then I pick up the dishes, ignoring everything else. And then you put things that have a home where they go. And then anything that doesn't have a home, you put it into a box and you take it out of the room. because your goal is not to find a home for everything. Your goal was to reset that space. So again, you sort and then purge, meaning if it's trash, you throw it away. If you have duplicates, consider if you need duplicates. Like I have 2 black sweaters and I need them both. I'm not throwing one of those away. You assign a home for things. Containerize, meaning I'm going to put all of my socks into this bin because they don't fit in my drawer and the drawer is overflowing and it's gross. So you pick a different container. And then equalize. So that means you don't just clean a room once, but you have to come back in and say, well, how did that work out? Am I going to keep the socks in the bin or am I going to try something else? So anyway, space, SPACE, is a good way to attack a physical space. Also, I want to put it on your radar if it's not already. There's a content creator named Casey Davis. She goes by Domestic Blisters on TikTok, and she wrote a book called How to Keep House While Drowning. And her whole thing is that cleaning is not a moral issue, but it's a functional one. You deserve a functional space. Your family deserves a functional space. You need to make your space work for you. Highly, highly recommend. Okay, so we've talked about physical space. Now we're going to talk about time. Organizing your time. Again, I'm a big fan of acronyms. They make me happy. They're easier for me to remember. There are 4 steps here. WADE, W-A-D-E. W is write it down. So if you are a paper-based planner person, then write it in your planner. If you are a digital native, then put it into Outlook. Like put your tasks onto your calendar. A is add it up. So if you've got to work 8 hours a day and you've got to take care of your family 8 hours a day and you've got to sleep 8 hours a day, I'm so sorry, there will not be time for you to go roller derby riding right now, right? You have to add up and make sure that all of your obligations fit into the time that you have. D, decide. So decide when you're going to do that task. If you have a task that needs a lot of mental energy, you might be a person who does their best work in the morning, so you should schedule that task then. I'm a person who does my best work late at night, so that's when I do my very heavy pressure tasks, just because that's how I work best. And that's what this presentation, I want you to get above all else. You need to do what works for you. Make it work for you. All right, and the last is execute. Like we can make the most beautiful planners in the world, but if you don't do the thing, then it was a waste of time. So make sure that you are writing it down, adding it up, deciding, and executing when it comes to organizing your time. Now, like I said, if you are a full-time student and a full-time parent and a full-time worker, that's a lot of full time. So sometimes there just aren't enough days in the week. There's not enough hours in the day. So I'd like you to consider these 4 strategies. Like number 1, delete. Is that a thing that you need to do or is it just a thing that you want to do? Like maybe vacuuming out your car every weekend can be stretched to maybe every other or maybe once a month, right? You can delete that task if it doesn't fit into the time that you have right now. The second one is to delay the task. So if I have 8 loads of laundry, I don't have time to do them all right now, but maybe I could do 1 load today and 1 load tomorrow and 1 load the next. So just spread it out a little. Diminish the task, same thing. How do you eat an elephant? Bite by bite. So just work on it a little today. Work on it a little tomorrow. There's a technique called the Pomodoro technique where you just say, I'm gonna do this for 20 minutes. And I cannot tell you how many times I've been able to completely do the thing in 20 minutes. Like I'm gonna power wash the dishes, or I'm going to just concentrate all of my attention on, like, I don't know, sweeping off the porch and stuff, right? Just being able to set a small amount of time, do as much as you can, and be done can be really helpful. And this last one, delegate. If you live in a house with other people, it is not reasonable for you to be doing all of the housework. Like everybody should do their share. Um, When I went over to my brother and sister-in-law's house, the 4-year-old had a job. He was unloading the dishwasher. He was putting away all of his plastic stuff into a shelf that was accessible to him. Everybody does their part. So that's delegation. So these are our 4 time organization options. And I will say this, beware. Beware of the 2 Ps. Procrastination is when you wait until the very last minute to do it. Some people do say that they work better under pressure, and I get that, but I would submit that if you did that work a day earlier and then spent the day before the deadline turning it in, doing the review, then it would be even better. So give yourself a chance to edit, is what I'm going to say about procrastination. And perfectionism is this awful belief that if it's not perfect, it's not worth anything. That's not true. None of us are perfect. None of us get it 100% all the time. But I've got to tell you, an 85 is better than a 0, and a 92 is better than nothing. So I'm just going to encourage you to do your best and let it rest when it comes to perfectionism. All right. So, y'all, we talked about it. We talked about organizing a physical space. We talked about organizing your schedule. And now we're going to talk about how to organize assignments and classes and paperwork, maybe even budget, right? And we're going to talk ideals for a little bit, and then we're going to go to some very practical applications. So whether it's your daily tasks, like as a teacher, it would be taking attendance, right? Or whether it's a major project or an annual review, there are lots of ways that you can organize your life more effectively. The key to organizing anything in your life is that it has to fit you. I want to say this again. It has to fit who you are, and it has to work for you long term. You're not going to organize like me, or you're not going to organize like the guy down the hall. It's got to be a system that works for you. All right. So we're going to be talking about OneNote a lot, and the way that projects or big chunks are organized is in a notebook. So use one notebook for each subject or use one notebook for each semester. There are lots of different ways you could do it, but a big chunk is going to be a notebook. And so then you're going to separate it into sections and then make sure you put all your details under the appropriate section. The other thing that I'll highlight here is that you want to be strategic about tags and labels. The worst thing you can do is just shove it in and hope to find it later. Um, that way be dragons. We're not doing that. And when it comes to a daily task, I find it helpful to make it an action item in Outlook. So you can just like check it off and you know that you're done with that task for the day. If there are any edits to the task or anything that's corrected, make sure that that gets put into your daily script so that you're not doing it wrong again. And then decide if it makes sense to keep records of that task in sequential order or if maybe you want to put them into an archive. When it comes to a particular project, I find it helpful again to organize my deadlines with Outlook. And y'all, Outlook talks to Teams beautifully and they integrate. And so you only have to look at one of them when it comes to calendars, which is really nice. You want to record your background research in OneNote and label your report section and keep everything kind of all in one place. And when you're done with a project, when it comes time to archive it, make sure that you've got like an executive summary on the front so you don't have to do all the research and all the reading again, so that you can just put your results on one page and then you're good to go. All right, I've been talking quite a bit. One of the things that I can get caught up in is finding just the perfect binder and the perfect folders and the perfect sticky notes. And I do want to encourage you, like if that's what you need to be organized, do that thing. But if you can do it at Dollar Tree, you might be able to save a penny or two. Um, all right. So in summary, organizational skills are not genetic. We all have to work at them throughout our lives. The time it takes to get organized is worth it because it saves you time and stress in the long run. There is not a one-size-fits-all organizational system. It truly has to complement your interests and your tendencies. And also, any good organization requires maintenance for it to be effective. You're never really done organizing your space, your time, or your work. All right. Whew, that was all the big ideas. Let me ask you some questions. Were there any ideas or concepts that were new to you? What stood out as a strategy or mindset that you plan to use immediately? I would love to hear from you in the chat. Writing it out by hand is new to you, Jordan? Yeah. Oh, nice. Very cool. Thanks, Eleanor. All right, friends. So we've been talking big, lofty ideas, and what I'd like to do now is get real specific and practical. So what I'd like you to do is to open up your laptop and open a browser to Wake Tech and sign into your either your student email or my.waketech.edu. And we're going to practice using OneNote right now. At the end of this session, you're going to have a notebook that you'll be able to organize a project or a class or something that you're interested in. We're going to do it right now. I'm super excited. So here we go. Now here's a little ad for OneNote. With OneNote, you can keep all your notes in one place and you can access them on all your devices. That's my favorite part. Notes are automatically stored in the cloud, so you'll never lose a note because you forgot to save it. Plus, you can easily share notes with friends and family, whether or not they have the OneNote program. So today, in this second half, we're going to explore the capabilities of OneNote. We're going to use those to create at least one notebook for this semester. And I'm so excited because I love it when I can leave a session with a product. So what I need you to do, it may already be on your laptop. You can get OneNote for free on the web, whether you're dealing with Windows, Mac, Android, or an iPhone. Basically, you want to push the Windows key and search for OneNote if you're on your laptop. For the web version, you want to sign into the student portal and select Create, and boom, you're there. So on the SharePoint page, there's a little plus button, and you want to create a notebook, just like that. Now, guys, I do not want to leave you in the dust. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns, or if you're ready to go, give me a big thumbs up, because you're going to build a notebook today. All right. So when you open up OneNote, you're going to find this, it looks like two books that are standing up straight and one that's leaning over. That's the navigation pane. OneNote consists of notebooks, and then inside of a notebook, there are sections, and inside of a section, there are pages, kind of like an old school Trapper Keeper. You might want to create a notebook for all the different major areas of your life, like school, work, and home. And you can always add more notebooks to your collection by clicking here. Not bad. So as for today, you might want to create one that says organizational skills. I don't know. But I want you to have practice building a new notebook right now, right here. Now, inside of your notebook, you can have multiple sections. They show up as tabs on old school, just like we had tabs on old school spiral notebooks. In the web app, you have sections that come like across the top like this. But if you're dealing with the desktop app, they go vertical like that. So those are sections. So if you were dealing with home, you might put something like, um, I don't know, like entertainment or shopping or things like that. As a student, you might want to create a school notebook and then have a section for each class, like psychology, calculus, poetry, etc. So inside of your notebook, there are sections, and you can have as many as you like. What's a little weird is that OneNote calls notes pages. So here's our notebook up top. Here's the section that we've chosen, and then we can make pages by adding a page. Let's say you have a notebook called Home, and one of the sections is entertainment. You could have separate pages where you keep lists of movies, books, and games that you want to check out. Like maybe you've got a recommendation from a good friend and they say, "Oh, dude, you have to read this book." Maybe this is how you keep it organized. In addition, students could create a page for every class meeting. So, like, during class, you could take notes on that page and you'll always know where to find them. So again, it's notebooks, and then inside of a notebook is a section, and inside of the section, there are pages. So what's really interesting is that you can create subpages. Imagine you're taking a course on poetry, and one day the lecture is about Shakespeare. During class, you'll be discussing several Shakespearean sonnets. You can add a page for Shakespeare's sonnets to the poetry section of your school notebook and create subpages for each poem. Boom, boom, boom. So again, there are several layers of organization. So there are two different levels of subpages. That means your subpages can have subpages. Gets a little hairy here. So you right click on a page to promote or demote it in your page hierarchy. So that's a page. These are subpages. And again, you can just right click and change what level of organization that's on, which is pretty cool. Um, Another good thing is that navigation pane with the two tall books and the one leaning one. If you click on it, it collapses all of that organizational stuff down, and you're just looking at your one page. If you click on it again, you'll see all of this organizational structure to see where you are in your notebook. So that's handy. Right? Another thing that OneNote allows you to do is to tag your notes. It has a bunch of built-in tags to help you organize your notes. You can choose from tags like remember for later, or website to visit, or even idea. On the desktop version, users in Windows and Mac apps can also create custom tags. So in the tag section of the home ribbon, you select the more dropdown. You can make your own tags. And that can be helpful for when you're reviewing for a test or you say, hey, this is what I want to research further. Another really useful thing is that you can search in your notebooks. The search button lets you search across all your notebooks or in a specific notebook section or page. Not only can you search for a particular word or phrase, you can also search by tag. Whew, that's a lot of details. So I would like to hear from you, please, please. Which strategy do you think you're going to use as you apply OneNote to your life? Are you going to have a school notebook where every class is a section? Are you going to have a class notebook with sections for each week? Or are you going to do something completely different that you think is going to work for you? This is also a great time to ask any questions you have about OneNote.
Well, thank you for letting us know about OneNote, because it's the first time I've ever used it.
Hey, great.
Yeah,
Cool.
actually pretty
I'm
cool, not
glad.
gonna lie.
Yeah, there's some other really neat things that I'm going to show you in just a sec, that one of my students was super excited about because you could basically record the lecture for your class um, inside of OneNote and put your PowerPoints inside there as well. Very cool. I knew that was true about you, Ashley. I think you might could teach me a thing or two. So, all right. The next thing I want to talk to you about is a little web applet called OneNote Web Clipper. Basically, it's an extension in Chrome, Firefox, and Edge. And while you browse the internet, you can just say, "Oh yeah, I want to save that for later." Click, like with one click, it can just put the article into your notebook, which is pretty cool. Another thing that you can do is to use the microphone in OneNote and you can just dictate a note. So you don't have to type it in, you could just speak it, which is great, especially for our people with accessibility issues. I just think that's awesome. So again, you can find the little microphone up on the home ribbon, which is super helpful, and dictate a note. Um, and then if you go home, insert audio, you can basically use your computer's microphone to capture whatever's going on in the room. So it's not going to insert a text at all, but it'll keep an audio recording. So it creates a .wav file that you can download straight into your OneNote, which is pretty cool. Again, accessibility issues are really important, and it's really great to have these tools handy. Speaking of accessibility, if you're a person who creates documents for the wider public and for the student body, there's an accessibility checker that will look at your document and say, this meets our expectations, or you might need to change this to make it more accessible. And that's pretty handy. There's an equation bank in OneNote as a math person. That's pretty nice. So I don't have to like try to type it in. I can just select an equation, but there's also, you can type in your equation if you need to. That's also handy. But this is one of my favorites. You can even draw an equation where you go insert equation, and ink. And it turns, and OneNote will take your scribbles and turn them into math type, which is pretty awesome. So I've really been impressed with OneNote and its ability to kind of take a lot of different inputs and kind of standardize them. The other thing, like this has been life-changing for me, is the ability to share OneNote with different clients. So like I said, I work as a remote tutor, and so most of my clients do math or chemistry or physics. And so they'll send a screenshot of a question and I'll put it into OneNote and then I'll like just write with my little scribbly pen and we'll solve the problem together. But they don't have to worry about writing it down at the same time in real time. I can just send them a copy of my notes. And it has been really, really helpful, and it's alleviated a lot of anxiety for several of my clients. So you can share a OneNote by sending a link, and you can either allow editing or not, which is pretty nice. Yeah. Um, you can also choose to select only one page. You don't have to share your whole notebook. So that's also good because you don't want all of your students to be able to see what all of your other students did. So the ability to like sort whether to share the notebook or the section or the page is also really nice. Yeah, so there it is. You just copy a link to this particular page, and then you can paste that link wherever you want if you want to do it in an email or in Teams or wherever. It's pretty handy. The last thing I'll say to you guys is this. The more that you use OneNote, the more that you'll learn about its capabilities. There are many things that I still have yet to learn. The real lesson here, though, is that it doesn't matter which app that you choose to use to stay organized. You just need to pick one and stick with it. It took me a while to commit to OneNote, but once I did, I feel like there's a bit of a learning curve, but there's also all this cool stuff that you get to do. Um, the last thing I'll add is that using the draw tool in OneNote has been revolutionary for me. If you can just copy paste your PowerPoint into it and you can take notes on the PowerPoint. You can work math problems. You can edit papers and pens with not papers and pens. You can edit papers with pens of different colors. Like maybe you use red for grammar and you use green for, I don't know, structural development. It's pretty cool, and I've really enjoyed it. So, above all else, I just want to say thanks for coming to this talk. I hope you learned something about organizing your space and your time and your documents, and I hope you're leaving with a OneNote notebook that you're going to experiment with. Nice. Ashley says, and I completely agree. It's so friendly on multiple devices. You can use it on your iPad and your laptop and your desktop and your phone. It's really quite handy. Do you guys have any questions or comments? Or have you been clicking around on OneNote and you have a specific question? Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Ashley. So guys, if there are no other questions, I'm just going to put a link to our next session. It's our closing keynote on adaptability. If you need a link, there it is. So I'm going to wish you a lovely day. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.